I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, February 11th, 2020 Park and Recreation Commission meeting. Janet, can we have a roll call, please?
Yep. Commissioner Osborne? Here. Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Darlene?
Here.
Commissioner McCormick? Commissioner Itis? Commissioner Strother? Here. Commissioner McCauley?
All right. In your packets, we got the meeting agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
Anything that we missed on the agenda?
Chair, the only thing is if you did want to, based on schedule, switch items C and B, if you're interested in that.
Yeah, just
or if you want to play it by ear as we
I think we'll just kind of see how we're rolling, just to let the commission know. B and C both require either resolution or potentially a vote. So we will try and manage both. The Commissioner Willett, who will be here in a little bit, and then Commissioner Nelson, who has to leave early. So we'll see when we get there. Also wanted to do approval of meeting minutes from the January 14th. Any questions or comments about the meeting minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Got to back up. So, sorry, can we vote on the, all in favor of the agenda approval?
Aye.
And all in favor of the approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Any nays? All right, both pass. Next section is community comment. I see some community members here. Anyone want to approach and add to the meeting? I take that as a no, so we will continue to move on. I believe staff has a presentation on some of the proposed parks and recreation fees for 2020.
Correct. Thank you, Commissioner. I'll introduce Tiffany Bushlin and Amanda Clark, Recreation Program Managers for the City of Edina. Who will give the presentation.
Thank you. Tiffany Bushlin, Recreation Supervisor, Amanda Clark, also Recreation Supervisor, here to talk to you this evening about some proposed fee changes. When we came to you at November 12th meeting for our fees for 2020, we were currently working on upgrading our shelter reservation system. Currently, we operate those as a paper system, so individuals call into our office and we handle those via paper copies and working with people individually over the phone and in person. We are in the process, Amanda and I, in moving those to an online reservation system. This would be the same reservation system that we utilize for all of our other registration software, so where people register for summer activities, fall activities, where they sign up for golf classes. It will be the same system that we utilize for that. In addition, we are utilizing it on a facility aspect with our birthday parties at Edinburgh Park. So we are using that for facility reservations currently. So with that came some different things that we compared around. We looked at the current operation and our policies in regards to these shelter reservations and compared it with neighboring communities. So we do have two different fees in front of you that are changes from what you did approve at the November 12th meeting, and that being Arneson Acres and as well as the Rosslyn Park. So with all of the online reservations, we have decided to go to a structure that sets time blocks for individuals to reserve. And the reason behind that is we wanted to be able to make these shelters the most available to as many people as possible. Typically, we would have an individual rent the facility right in the middle of the day, and it wouldn't be open for anybody else to use that facility. So we have checked around in our neighboring communities and decided to come up with this structure that separates the shelter reservations into two different time blocks for half days and then a full day time block. And with that, we did notice that there are some differences, and in front of you, you do see the two different proposed fee changes. For Rosslyn Park, previously we had only had to reserve that once a day. We didn't have the staff, maintenance staff capable to clean that shelter throughout the day. When we were looking at our policy to update these reservations, we decided to separate the time blocks in a way that staff could easily rotate through the community, cleaning these shelters, turning them over for the next reservation. And within that, Rosslyn Park is an extremely popular shelter building that people want to rent. So we thought it would be ideal to give more people an opportunity to reserve that. And with the structure of having somebody clean throughout the middle of the day, we are able to turn that over, we believe, so 2 people could use that throughout the day. So you'll see that's why the proposed fee has changed there. And then also for Arneson Acres, with that individual having somebody on site throughout the day, we hope to have a more professional opportunity to greet individuals that are reserving Arneson. So an increased fee there, making it more of a professional opportunity. So those are the 2 fees that we have for you today. And Amanda and I would be happy to answer any questions you have in regards to those fees. But we ask that you would, recommend those fees changes to the council. Any questions that you'd have for us?
I do have a quick question. I am in favor of the changes. I was just wanted to confirm 2 things. I didn't see on the very back where it mentions the other Creek Valley, Highlands, et cetera, that are going to be available without a fee change. I just wanted to make sure, are all of the facilities, including the ones that are listed and not listed, are they all going to the online booking system?
Yeah, it's a great question. All of them, except for the ones that you have listed there, Creek Valley, Highlands, Lewis, Normandale, and Strachauer. Those we will not have on our online system. Those currently don't have a fee to reserve, and they're mainly used by athletic associations and neighborhood associations. So those 5 shelters will not be on the online reservation. So an individual will have to call in order to do that. And another thing I did forget to mention is that we will have a form that you can print and mail in. So if somebody doesn't want to go through the reservation process online, we won't accept phone calls because that takes a large amount of staff time for us to actually complete that form, but we will have that form available for them to mail in as well.
Perfect. And just one more question on the process of that. Is there a timing, like you have to reserve it 24 hours in advance, or how does that, is this?
That's a great question. So you have to have at least 5 business days in advance in order to reserve the space, so we can plan according to staffing needs, and we will allow them to reserve up to 6 months in advance. And it'll go on a rotating basis. So for today, in 6 months, those facilities will open up.
Sorry, I'm only asking these questions because this happened to me recently. So, because sometimes it rains when you think you're gonna have things outside and you need to move them inside. So, also online, am I able to see like what's booked and not booked, even though I may not be able to get in there with a 5-day window?
Yes, yep. So you'll be able to reserve, you'll see what is available and not available. For example, just in our testing phase, right now all of our shelters are utilized for outdoor rinks. And so we have those booked, and within the testing phase, you cannot see any time that those are booked. So the system automatically takes them away.
So, and you and I talked about this on the phone around the fields so much. Are they also going to be able to have visibility to like when there's versus me calling you and saying when is there fields? I can have my goalie practice.
You get to call me still.
Okay, good. Good.
No, we will not have our fields visible online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What were the other communities that you looked at?
We looked at mainly, yeah, go ahead.
St. Louis Park, Richfield were the 2 that we compared. They seem to be the most compatible with what they offer and we offer. So those were the 2 that we've been comparing against.
And those 2 cities also utilize the same software system that we do. So the capabilities in the software system are also very similar.
What are you going, or how are you going to communicate this to the general public that this is what we're doing? And then also, where are you planning on, is this going to be easily accessible on the website in a couple of different places? Are you thinking about trying to maybe get something on the homepage so that it's right there as opposed to 25 clicks in?
Yeah, so we've been working with our communications department in revamping our website. Most of the information about these reservations will be housed on our own internal website, so the Parks and Recreation website, and then for specific shelters, you will then click and you'll go into the Max Galaxy software where you'll actually reserve that. We decided to shoot for a March 10th launch because the majority of our reservations happen on March 1st, and this is, people have been doing it this way for years, so we've decided let's let them do it this way and then say, hey, by the way, next time you reserve the shelter, this is how you're going to do it. So we expect there might be some hiccups, and we decided to postpone on when we actually start that just to be prepared for that. We'll work with our communications team on getting a plan out to the public, but definitely our website will be updated for it.
Anything else? I think the staff's looking for, is an approval on the fees?
Recommendation of the City Council.
Recommendation.
Do you want me to tell you again? I think I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good move. I think that I think that the 5-day is an opportunity, honestly. I think, or at least being able to put in those 5 days a phone call, because weather does create opportunities, and I think it's silly to turn people down because of that. Just personal experiences. But besides that, I'm okay with the fees.
So we have a recommendation to increase the fees for Arneson and Rosslyn as stated in the report that was given to us. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the recommendation passes. All right, the next item on the agenda is a work plan initiative back from 2019 around a naming, possible facility or park naming for the Yancey family.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a continuation of your 2019 work plan. One of your initiatives, it was a cross-commission work plan with the Human Rights and Relations Commission. That work kind of landed with them to finish out the year and make a recommendation to the Parks Commission. That initiative specifically was to look for a public facility within roughly the Grandview area to name after the Yancey family. The work that had been done on that to date is included in a memo from the Human Rights Commission to the Park Commission with their recommendation. They narrowed things down to Wooddale Park, located on West 50th Street and Wooddale Avenue. And the other option they had for you was Garden Park, just west of here as well. So Wooddale just east of City Hall, Garden Park just west on Vernon and Hanson. They did contact the Heritage Preservation Committee to get a more definitive answer of was there a specific location for the Yancey homestead, not an exact location, but within that general area. Staff did look through some of our files about, we have a lot of parks and memorials within our system about what exactly were behind the names of Garden and Wooddale. Including your packet, we did not find anything to date on Garden Park that it was named. It shows up on the early plat of the subdivision, so we believe that's how it was named. And then on Wooddale, obviously that was named after Wooddale Elementary School that stood on that corner. And if you see the bricks and the columns, that is still there. There are a number of individual memorials and tree dedication and plaque dedications within Wooddale. Those are all noted within your packet. So with that in mind, we'll turn it back to the commission. This is a review and recommend, I believe, is the action that we would like you to take to send that to the city council with what your recommendation might be.
I can start. I feel like Wooddale Park has a meaning around the Wooddale School. That's why it's named Wooddale Park. So I would be much more comfortable with Garden Park. That doesn't have really a history. Plus you have all these other people who have put plaques and things in Wooddale Park, and I just think renaming it at this point doesn't make sense to me. But Garden Park, especially if there's no history there, it just seems like the natural choice of the two that they gave us.
I would agree with Brenda on everything she spoke about, as well as Garden's actually the closest there is to Grandview Square. So I think it's a great opportunity. And I looked on the maps too. I think it's really just named after the streets and the quadrants that were over there on the maps originally. And I think the history of Wooddale Elementary, I think it would be a disservice to take it out.
I agree. I think it's less complicated to just go with Garden Park.
I agree.
Yeah, the only thing that we didn't talk about here is geographically, the homestead for the Yancey family is closer technically to Wooddale Park. I just want to make sure we understood that. But again, to Perry's point, they came back to us. We had, member Osborne, Willett, and myself were part of this cross commission, and we had asked them to come back with what they thought was a suitable memorial for the family. They came back just in September. We just got it here at the end of the middle of last month that said we wanted to do a park. That was Perry, and my request was then to find out what's the history, and I think we're hearing probably what we were looking for, which is Wooddale seems to have a little bit more of these historical markers, and there's a reason behind the name. The garden park seemed to be a little bit more generic, and might be an opportunity to make it more specific to this family that's very important to our history. Anybody else? All right, so I think at this time we're looking for a recommendation based off of the request from the HRRC that then would be presented to the City Council for their vote on a memorial for the Yancey family.
I recommend that we choose Garden Park as being the one named after the Yancey family as a recommendation.
Second.
We have a recommendation and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Recommendation passes. Next on the agenda is the annual election of officers. So we will start with the chair position. Does anybody have anyone they would like to nominate?
Chair, before we begin, do you want me to just go through process quick?
Yes,
so we're
please.
all on the same page. There's just a couple of things in the city bylaws about this process that we can go over. The first is that a quorum must be present. You have met that threshold. It actually is the same number at 9 that it is at 7, so you need to have 4 to pass. So 9 would have been 5 to pass. Tonight you have 7 voting members. Unfortunately, Bryn, you did not get to vote this evening. So we need 4 to pass. The second and at first we'll take nominations for chair, and then after that concludes, then we'll do vice chair. The vote itself must be taken by hand or voice vote. We don't do paper ballots here. And then there must be a second for each nomination to be considered. So those are kind of in your packet. There's also kind of the roles that are within there. Just wanted to go through what the bylaws specifically say, so you can begin your process.
Good. I'd like to nominate Rick Eitz to be chair.
I'll second that recommendation.
Anybody else? I will nominate Greg Good to continue as chair.
I'll second that.
Was it
Brenda.
Brenda.
Anybody else? All right, Perry, I think we have time for a vote.
Do you want to call, or should I? I can call? Okay, you're going to keep track though, right? Okay. Commissioner Nelson? So first we'll go through.
Do I say Rick or Greg? Is that what you want me to say?
I think we should vote on them each and then see where we end up. So we'll take the first vote on Commissioner Itis.
But I could only vote yes for one, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. Yes,
So you're asking me if I'm voting for Greg or you're asking me for Rick?
correct.
I'm asking. Oh, sorry. Yes for Rick. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I was
Yep,
asking
just
the
wanted to
right
make sure we
person.
do it right.
Oh, man.
Commissioner Willett?
Yes for Rick.
Commissioner Darlene?
No for Rick.
Commissioner McCormick?
No for Rick.
Commissioner Ida? Yes. Commissioner Strother?
Yes.
Commissioner McCall?
Yes.
So I have 5 votes for Commissioner Itis. Is that correct? So that's
Correct.
a majority?
Yes.
Correct.
So memberitis passes. I don't know how the right pronunciation of or what the right terminology is, but memberitis is nominated or promoted or approved for
For
Commissioner Chair.
Correct.
something like that.
Yes. Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Next would be for vice chair. Any nominations?
Chair, I'll read one in absentia, and that is Commissioner Good has recommended Vice Chair Matt Deline to do another term, so he has made that nomination. He cannot vote this evening, though. No.
I'd like to nominate Eileen McCauley.
Do we have a second on either Matt or a second on Eileen? Or else we need more nominations?
I was going to recommend Greg after what just went through, so now I'm kind of at this. So I guess I would nominate Greg from what I was going to say, but I don't know that.
Okay.
That's for my.
So Greg has been the vice chair twice, so just an FYI, I don't know if that matters.
She's been the chair twice too.
Correct. I don't believe there are any term limits for vice chair.
So I think we need seconds for both of those.
So we have 3 nominations for vice chair.
Can
I second all of them. Okay.
We have to stop at 7, don't we?
Correct. Commissioner Willett has seconded those 3. Are there any other nominations
No, can I,
or comments?
is it proper now to ask a process question? Or maybe it's not a process question, a historical question? Or are we in the middle of, are we in Robert's Rules of Order land here?
I would recommend that we finish out nominations, and then once everyone has that, and then I think we should ask the historical question. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? So we have those 3. Those 3 have been seconded. Discussion.
So my question was, having, I think, been here for 2 elections where we switched chairs, historically, we have had the incoming chair nominate the vice chair with an idea that they work together on projects, is my understanding, but I've only been here twice, and maybe I'm looking at.
Say it one more time.
That historically, the incoming chair has nominated the vice chair that they want to work with. Is that the past practice? And I've only been here for 2. I'm not saying that that's the way it should work, but I'm wondering if that has been past practice beyond the 2 that I've been part of.
From my recollection, in the past practice, yes, the incoming chair that was voted has nominated. We haven't always had multiple people interested in the role, so we have 3. It's a bit different, but Rick did nominate the person he thought, right?
I would say also in history, so Brenda and I are the old ones here. It's not only that, but it seems like before this time of the repeating, often it was you took over for the person, when you were vice, you took over the next year, so it was like a incumbent kind of a thing.
Yeah, that happens, that happened with Greg, and that happened when I was the chair or vice chair with Dan.
Yep.
But the person prior to that did not.
Okay, and Dan was
happen.
my first.
Yeah, so I think it can work.
It doesn't
however.
really matter, I don't think.
And I appreciate that historical context. It doesn't have to stay that way. I just wasn't sure what the past practice of the Park Commission was.
Any other comments?
I think we have them all seconded, so we should vote.
Should vote. Start with Commissioner Darlene. Commissioner Nelson?
This is the lucky spot. I think it's hot over here.
The light is different, yeah.
You know, it really is. It must be. And you can't vote. I'm going to go with my nomination because that's what I said. So I would go with Greg because that's what I had already said. I think that's what I should have done in the first place. So,
Okay.
but I don't have really strong opinion on this one.
Okay. Commissioner Willett?
Yeah, I'll go with Greg as well.
Commissioner Darlene?
I'll vote for myself.
Commissioner McCormick?
Greg?
Commissioner Itis?
Eileen.
Commissioner Strother?
I'm going to vote for Eileen. I will say I wish Greg was here to say whether or not he wanted to be vice chair.
Commissioner McCollum?
I'll vote for myself.
By my math, we were at 3-3-1. So I think we should re-vote. 1 vote Matt, 3 vote Eileen, 3 vote Greg.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. It's evening. Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
Does the bylaw say this is the order we go in?
So I think we should re-vote then on.
Can I ask folks to talk about their perspective on
This is your
The
time. Yes.
vice chair
This is
position?
absolutely your time.
I know, but I'm
And
just.
ultimately, you need me to change my vote, correct? I think no one's going to change their vote of those 3. That people that have 3, right? Yeah. So I'll vote for Greg.
I think to make it official by Robert's rules, let's just re-go back on the record.
I'm going to continue with my original vote of Greg.
Wouldn't you be the deciding vote?
He can't vote.
Yeah, but if
No, that's why we have to have
it's
that odd
a
number.
split decision,
It's not split though, it's 7.
yeah, sounds good.
Staff does not have a decision.
I'm just to what you had asked before, I'm assuming that Greg knew that he was going to be recommended for the chair, correct?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so I'm assuming that he would be okay with this, versus your question of, you wish he was here. But he was aware that you were going to nominate him, correct?
He was, and again, historically, and kind of along the lines of Julie, I hadn't seen where there was an incumbent chairperson that then was not continued on unless they chose to not do that. So, or they termed out. So then I don't know. I never had the conversation with Greg, being that he was going to be absent tonight, that he would have to then, if he would or would not want to be vice chair. I think he has just assumed that was.
And he was the vice chair twice, and then the chair twice, right?
Yeah, and during that time, we changed the term limits. We voted on term limits at some point. So Brenda was chair for 2 years, and Greg was her vice chair for 2 years. And then when Brenda termed out of becoming chairperson, she nominated Greg. Greg took that role, and then Greg had nominated me. We did it for the last 2 years, and Greg, because there was no term limit, had said, and he and I had a discussion because I wanted to nominate him if he wanted to continue on, knowing that 2 years had been kind of the way that we had finished things in the prior, and he said no, he'd like to continue on if that was the case. So I then told him that I would nominate him tonight.
Okay.
I don't think we didn't plan for if there would be somebody else and if that somebody else were to win. So that's kind of where we're at. I think Greg would be more than, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he'd be more than willing to continue on as the vice chair. He's done it before. And I don't know, it's hard because this is Member McCormick's last session with us, so it would be hard to put this on pause and have Greg be able to come back next week, because then we would have a vote that then isn't here in March. So I think we have to do this, and then if we can talk to Greg after this, and if he decides to not accept it, then we would just go through that process then again in March with the sitting commission that's here.
That's correct.
And go for that.
Yeah.
So
That was the
You could table this until March because you now have a chair for the March meeting. So I think the diligence to do it in February was because it was the chair and vice chair's
Yeah.
last meeting of that prior vote.
my only concern, and I think Julie will probably look it up in the rules, but my only concern is that the initial vote that got us to a tie, Brenda had one of the votes,
Mhm.
and then if she leaves, then it wouldn't, we would be starting at a different situation, so. And I'm not trying to make this overly difficult, I'm just trying to make sure that we do it
I'm just saying you have
properly.
that option if the commission so chooses, so it's not a recommendation, but you could.
And as the acting commissioner tonight, I'd probably ask the commission for what their thought was, as opposed to me putting together something. So if that's what we want to do, then I would ask the commission to do it.
Can I just clarify? Sorry, what you sent us in our meeting material says that the board and commissions are asked to hold their annual elections in February. And so you're saying that we must elect a chair. We can, even though there's that direction here, we have an option to table the vice chair discussion until the next meeting.
That's my interpretation of it.
Okay.
Because you have gone through the process to elect a chair.
Okay.
So next March, then you could, under Robert's rules, you can start the meeting and run the meeting.
Okay.
So Rick, you have to be here in March.
Correct.
It's not Rick that like I said, I'm not trying to overcomplicate this. The only thing I'm saying is that we took a vote. The tie of the 6 votes that created the 3-3 tie, one of them was Brenda's, and she's going to not be here, so.
And I do not know if we will have a,
Right, oh, no, I know other
new
people will be here, I'm
commissioner
just
in
saying
March
it,
or not.
yeah, I just don't want to, I want to make sure that there isn't something that's wrong because of someone that voted then is not voting in the re-election or the new, or whatever you want to call it,
yeah. In theory, Commissioner Good could resign from vice chair, and you could do this.
That's where I
again.
was thinking, is if we voted, then he said that he wouldn't want to do it, then they could then pass it along to the next person. So that was what I was more thinking, just to be able to seat people tonight.
Mhm.
I guess I'll open it to the commission on what we would like to do. I'm just acting on Greg's behalf tonight, so if there's other people that have a thought of what we should do, I'm open to either voting or right now and seating Greg. I guess the 2 things are on the table, is voting and seating Greg as vice chair, or tabling this and letting Rick in his first meeting as chairman in March, then have that be one of the agenda items for the March meeting.
I would say the way that I think the rules are right, we've already voted, and we can give Greg the chance to accept or decline, and then if he is at that point, and then we want to revote, or maybe Miller wants to throw his name in the hat too. I mean, maybe you want to run next time, just for fun. But I think I think that we've already voted, so it feels funny to vote 3 times and then table it. So I feel like we should vote, and then he should either accept or decline, and then we can proceed. That would be my recommendation.
I agree with your recommendation, because otherwise it feels like
3-3-1.
we stopped in the middle of a process that we had going.
We would have to vote again.
Greg?
We have not voted again. Do you want me to call the roll again?
That's the recommendation. Do we have does anyone else have other thoughts? So then, I guess,
I will just say that I feel it would have been nice to know from Greg whether or not he wanted the vice chair position. I think he's done a great job as chair, and he did a great job as vice chair. And we've sort of had this sort of pattern of rotating chairs, which I think has been really healthy. But I also know it's work to be both the chair and the vice chair. And so I guess my inclination would be to table it so that we could hear from him whether or not he wants to do the vice chair role. But I understand that since we're in the middle of the process, that's awkward, and there might be, and I want to respect the fact that some people who made a priority to come here today for this discussion, might not be able to be here next time. So I guess I'm conflicted about it, because I feel we're like volunteering him for something that I'm not sure he's interested in doing, but I guess if he has the opportunity to resign, knowing, I guess I would say, and I'm not obviously speaking for anyone else, that it wouldn't be any sort of reflection on him or his commitment to the park commission if he decides he doesn't want the vice chair again. I get, that's my thinking on it, is it's.
See, the thing I think it would be odd about this whole thing is, so we would vote him as the vice chair now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say he wants the vice chair, and then he comes in March and he's not voted as the vice chair. There's just something weird about that to me. So I just feel like we started the process, we should finish the process, and it's up to him.
and I hear what Member Struther's saying, and I can see where that's a little, I think the thing we have to caveat this is that if he were to not want it, he's not, this isn't about his commitment to the commission, it's just that he's not into that role. And I think we should definitely make sure that that's denoted if that's what he chooses to do between now and March, if we decide that we're going to now vote again.
Yeah, and I guess I would be comfortable with that, of just making it clear that I want to respect the fact that he's done a lot of service to the Park Commission, and if he decides that the vice chair role is not where he wants to put his time and energy, and he wants to dig into like a work project item or something else, that it's not, we're not doing this because we want to put him in the awkward position of having to decline. You're giving him the opportunity to accept, is what I'm hearing. So, okay.
So under that, do we feel comfortable, Perry? Do you want to call another roll for the two candidates that each received 3 votes?
Absolutely, if that's your direction. Start
hot
with
seat?
Commissioner Nelson.
The hot seat, I'd go back to Greg.
So we're re-voting?
Between Commissioner Good and Commissioner McCall.
Okay. I'm going to change my vote to Macaulay.
I'll vote for Commissioner Good.
Commissioner Good.
Commissioner McCauley.
I vote for Commissioner McCauley.
Commissioner Macaulay.
I think you just solved that issue.
Sure, yeah. So
I had
it sounds,
As
from,
my math goes, I have 4
Yeah.
votes for Commissioner McCauley, 3 votes for Commissioner Good.
sure.
4 votes
So
would be a quorum.
we have Chair Member Itis and Chairman Itis and Chairwoman McCauley for our March meeting, or Vice Chairwoman Woman McCauley for our March meeting. Next, Perry's going to take us through a review of the commission bylaws.
Just so you know, that's how I became French Club president in high school. I did not attend the meeting and came back. Annually, coinciding with voting on the annual election of officers is a review of the commission bylaws. So just, you know, we've included those in your packet. You cannot take any official action this evening on those. And just to kind of go through that why is that you must make any comments publicly before voting on those. So you must make any comments before you would entertain actually a motion to recommend changing those bylaws. That recommendation would ultimately go to the city council for consideration on the bylaws. One thing is that process, if you did have recommendations, we would try to work to look through all commission bylaws. One of the goals has been to try to keep a lot of things consistent from commission to commission, just for that sake. So if there are things that you've found within the bylaws that maybe you want clarification on from the council, or you have new ideas of other things that you've come across, you can either make those comments tonight, and then we would bring that back to you for your consideration, or you could ask us to make those and then go research how would this impact other commissions as well to come back. So it isn't a decision point you do need to make this evening, but if there are things that you would like to recommend or anything like that, we do need to get them on the record and then follow that up at a subsequent meeting. So.
All right, anything else, Perry?
That is all.
Okay. Next agenda item is the 2019 Parks and Recreation.
So if you had any comments, I just want to make sure before we close that one out, if anyone had any comments to put on the record for this evening for the bylaws. If you did recommend any changes or alterations, you need to state those publicly tonight, so. So I'm not seeing any. But
No,
I
I
just
think we're
wanna-
good.
Just wanted to bookend that, so.
Okay. Like I started, next agenda item is the 2019 Parks and Recreation Work Plan update. Ideally, closing that and moving to the 2020 plan.
Thank you, Chair. Just, we're going to keep this on there. This is like a summary document from your 2019 work plan. I just want to confirm that everyone got the link. Okay, I'm seeing some heads shake, some up and down, some in it. I will resend that. As requested by the commission last meeting, we did set this up as a open source doc for you to work on edits to compile amongst your groups, then to bring back for review and approval. So seeing that, I will resend it, and I will follow up with a separate email saying that I sent it. So when you get the email that says I resent it, make sure you got the other one. So we don't want it going to spam or anything like that, because it did come from Google Docs. So that document is out there. Again, we'd like you to work within your initiative subgroup to get any of those comments or recommendations within this, and then we'll bring it back for review as a full commission before it would go to City Council.
Anything else on the 2019 plan?
But who didn't get it? I just want to, Corin, no for Eileen. Okay, anyone else? Okay, just make sure we get it out there, so.
All right, last item underneath reports and recommendations is the 2020 Parks and Recreation Commission work plan. It looks like we got in your packet, you should see as much as up to date from since our last meeting in January. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 initiatives. I don't know if there's any updates, if it's worth the time to go through these individually, or if we just want to open the floor to anyone that has an update for any of these at this point. I think I'll just do it that way, and then if there was anybody else that wanted to be added to any of these, I think we've got enough on all of them, but certainly if there's something that anyone individually has an interest to, we can certainly add them to any of these at this point. So.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I got a couple of questions. One, some of the documents that the commission has asked to review have not been completed yet. So again, that's going to be waiting for those commissions to finish them before they're sent your way. And then the other one we did last meeting look at kind of setting some completion date guidelines. So maybe Commissioner Nelson, you and I can spend some time on scheduling initiative number 4 that has the closest goal date for us to finish, that maybe we can try to get some things scheduled with the other commissioners on that subgroup and
Actually,
get that
on that
going.
one, I actually did create the voting buttons to schedule it, but I just haven't pushed send on it. So
Perfect.
I know I'm late on that one, but I do want to make sure that if there's anything that were updated or sent out there that you need me to approve on that. Is that the one you're referring to?
Not on that one.
Okay.
No. Initiative number 1 is the work item that we're waiting on other commissions to finish. So, but number 4 had the closest goal completion date.
And I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting, so maybe this is covered, but initiative number 2, we're still waiting
on
that.
HRRC.
Okay.
But they have made progress.
Great.
So the plan was to reach out. So.
Anything else on the 2020 work plan as it's listed here in our packet? All right. Next is chair and member comments. So I open the floor to the commissioners.
Because I thought I was going to be late and didn't get this far along, I already passed this along to Perry, but I want to make sure that it's in the. It's been noted that I think we need to provide the city with an update of what's going on with Arden. Before the snow was falling, there was concern about the flooding. And I think that people are still concerned about the flooding, although it is still covered in snow, that when it melts, there will be more flooding as well as potential erosion. So I think that you and I have already discussed this, Perry, but just making sure that we provide some communication through the city as well as through the watershed district. That would be the one. And then the other one was also a communication request of an update of what's going on and what potential roadblocks are ahead of trying to get the bike paths at Braemar. So it sounds like it's a funding thing, but from people that have brought it to my attention, it was approved by the council, so what's the holdup? So I think that that's some communication that could be utilized.
Would you like me to just answer those now rather than during informational items? I can at least cover those 2.
I think you can answer them,
then,
but my biggest thing was a takeaway of making sure that there's a takeaway too, that I think communication could be given via other channels besides just us.
Yeah. I'll just give a few right now on record. And one, the timing of your Arden question is a good one. We actually received communication today from Minnehaha Creek Watershed District that they will be starting work on the continued stream bank restoration that they had started and made a lot of progress on in 2019. And they plan on working within the stream bank, so they have equipment within the creek working on the banks, most likely starting next week, the 17th, 17th through the 21st, and maybe the 24th through the 28th. They expect only about 4 to 5 days of work, but they're kind of giving a window depending on weather and things like that. So they've been working on some of that restoration already. The reason they're going to be doing that is not due to any flooding concern, but they need to get the equipment in there before the fish spawning restriction occurs. And that window is March 15th through June 15th. So their goal is to get a lot of that work done that they can now, rather than when the restriction is on. So nothing to do with a flooding issue, but they want to get in there and continue that work. They will not need to restrict any access to the park. However, they will be mindful that there could be park users within it. Guessing not a lot of kayaking and canoeing that they need to worry about. Separately, the question about flooding is the watershed district felt that they did have appropriate erosion control in last year. There was some grading for the open hockey rink. However, that was hydro-seeded within, so when we do get melt and growing season, that should pop back up. They felt that the new stream banks worked very well over the last year. They had the fabric within there with stable seed that's supposed to germinate now with new plantings from prairie restorations. Those areas, like I said, that they did not get completed last year, they're going to be working on now. They also feel that the site will benefit during the melt season that is coming up because the creek's now reconnected to its floodplain. So before, the creek and the floodplain itself were disconnected, so now that should all function as one within there. So they are very confident in it. They also, as you know, control the headwaters dam structure at the exit of Lake Minnetonka, the entrance to Minnehaha Creek watershed. So they are able to monitor and control that. So when it does come time for the melt season, they'll be able to monitor that quite carefully. And I know they will do the right thing for their project and balance that. So, and they plan on also will re-push all of their communications as well as the lead on that project. So in reference to the Braemar Master Plan is what specifically we're talking about when we talk about the bike trails that I believe it was 2018, or 2017, 2018, the Braemar Master Plan was recommended by the Parks Commission. The City Council did adopt that. That did make the first year of the capital improvements program. However, it is unfunded within that document. So that includes the paths, the parking lots, the mountain biking trails, additional restoration, all within that quadrant of the land that was, rebalanced, I guess, during the golf course construction. So going from 27 holes to 18 opened up a lot of those opportunities. Braemar Master Plan is and was included in the council's resolution to the state legislature for the possible concept of the use of a local option sales tax or lost. So that was one of 4 projects. The other was Weber Woods and Fred Richards Park, also one that has an adopted master plan that is unfunded, the old golf course, as well as municipal state aid streets. So 4 regionally significant projects were recommended by resolution to the state legislature. That is a long process. And we will wait to see. This is a bonding year at the state legislature, so we're not sure how much policy will be taken up, but that's the first step in use of that option. Ultimately, if the state legislature would agree, the city council would have to hold a referendum with Edina residents on the use of that and the implementation thereof. So that is quite a long process. We'd probably not start, if it was all successful, would not start capturing that revenue till about 2023 maybe. So just to set people's expectations, this isn't a session ends May 31st, how quick could we get it on, and boom, we're starting. So It's a complicated and arduous process, and has a lot of set of eyes on that. So those are kind of those updates on those two items that you had mentioned.
Perry, can I, just a curious question about that. So if it needs to go through that process, does that mean those projects then are on hold until that would happen? And then if that funding doesn't go through, then other alternatives, or would they still be looking at alternative funding?
Great question. The City Council and actually the Park Commission is still looking for alternate funding for those sources. So Lost needs a regional significant tie. Braemar Park, Fred Richards with the 9 Mile Creek Trail within it, we feel meets that definition. So it was, let's also try this option. That does not mean that that is our one and only. It's just one avenue that we did recommend, and the council supported that site. So it's on the commission's work plan, looking at alternate funding for Braemar, alternate funding for Fred Richards, and we're coming into an additional capital improvement plan programming year for 2021. So a lot of avenues, not just one.
Couple of things. The Arden Ice Day, my wife and I went, and if we don't have, we should probably put dog signs up as quickly as possible, because there was a lot of people walking their dogs with no bags. Secondly, since it's Brenda's last night, I'd like to thank her personally. She was on the golf task force, and it was lengthy, probably 2+ years, 3 years, and she spent a lot of time and was very useful on that task force. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. That was one of the highlights, I would say, of my 6 years on the commission. And I wanted to also thank each of you, because I've learned so much from working with everybody on the commission, and it's just really been really one of the highlights, I would say, of my volunteer experience. I think back to the first year I was on, it was when the indoor soccer dome was first put up in the outdoor rink. And just think of all the things we've done. We've done the golf course, has been completely redesigned, and it's amazing. And we've got the plans for all these great initiatives. We just haven't found the funding yet. We've redesigned a number of parks, and I know particularly a highlight was Rosslyn Park, which you worked on with all the ADA, and the pickleball courts, which were donated, have really made such a difference there. And then just recently, right, the Arden Park, just a phenomenal change for that park. So time seems like it goes slow as you're on the commission, but then when you look back, as I was reflecting, really a lot has happened. And it's really due to all the dedication of everybody on this commission and the people that were on it before. So thank you for allowing me to serve with all of you.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Member Idis's comments, and I speak for Greg, and I know that he would want me to do this because he told me, but he had a little gift for you here on your last night of 6 years of dedicated service to the Parks and Rec board at one point, now the Parks and Rec Commission. So Brenda, on behalf of Greg and the rest of us, thank you very much for your service to the community of Edina and the Parks and Recs Commission.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. I'm going to miss you, everybody, so I'll watch you on TV, but thank you very much. That's very thoughtful.
Yeah.
You're welcome to come for community comment.
Yeah. Anything else for chair or member comments? All right, we'll open it up to the staff comments.
Yes, I'll cover a number of informational items in your packet for those watching or listening. The first is our activities directory, and spring-summer registration will begin shortly. The directory should have hit mailboxes within the last day or so. Registration begins Wednesday, February 19th at noon. We picked noon for a number of reasons. We're coming off of the Monday holiday. It also gives residents a little bit of a chance to settle in, whether they're during their commute, getting kids dropped off, etc. Again, always be mindful. Make sure your password is correct and updated, and you can log in. We can help troubleshoot that in the morning, and then activity registration will start at noon then on February 19th. Commissioner Idis mentioned Arden Park. We did have our Super Sunday Skate at Arden on the 2nd. We had about 75 people attend. just a great event. I think we also had more people just come to look at the facility than skate as well. And we did give out Edina hats, throwback hats. So this is the 70th year of hockey at Arden Park. So we did some kind of retro hats there with Edina for those that participated. I just wanted to cover quickly, speaking of rinks, our rink attendance to date is one of our higher years ever. So 2019, 2020, we've already hit 27,000 people that have attended our rinks. And just to put that in comparison, for all of last season, the 2018 to 2019, that was just shy of 25,000 people. So we still have a number of days to go. We're going to try to extend the season the best we can. The sun gets awful high this time of the year and burns up that north end, but we also would probably look to keep some of geographic and facilities open without, and maybe some of them would close as we go forward, but the most we can keep open, the better. So we've been open 57 days so far for 27,159 that have attended. The top 3 parks for attendance are Weber, Pamela, and Arden. So Arden is a very popular one now too after the construction. Last year, those numbers I gave you were over 74 days. So we've only had 4 days closed this year due to warm weather and or rain. So very impressive for the people that are using them, our maintenance staff, our park staff that's operating them within. So it's been a very good skating season. Let's see. Want to draw your attention to Braemar Arena and the Icola Cup statue. So for those of you that know the Icola Cup, it's a...
So we'll let you let that pass because you're from Minnetonka, but that's Icola.
Icola?
Yeah.
And from Wisconsin. So Icola? Willard Icola. Casey Hankinson also corrected me on that this morning, so I knew I had a 50-50 chance of saying it correctly. But that group has successfully fundraised to get that statue commissioned and ready for installation. So they've had about $70,000 in donations for that. And just a quick update on that, it's scheduled for the donation to be accepted by the City Council on Wednesday, March 4th. So that's more of the procedural piece for the council to accept the donation. On that Saturday, March 7th at 10 a.m. will be a small dedication ceremony. So look for an invitation on that as well. So for those of you that can make it, I don't think I need to go into his impact on Edina and Edina hockey anymore. So the Golf Dome, we have been very busy over there for those of you that have participated or even driven by. Attendance is very high. We have added, kind of in response to the demand, an additional youth night, and that would be Sundays in February from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Youth under the age of 25 can participate for $20 per hour in unlimited golf balls, and that includes the Top Tracer range technology. The Golf Dome had received 2 awards at the annual PGA Merchandise Show. They're called Tracy Awards for Top Tracer. The first was the Challenge Champ Award for the largest participation in the Global 9-Shot Challenge. We had the highest participation over 200 other facilities, and the second was the leaderboard domination. So we have a lot of people playing and a lot of good people playing is kind of the results of that. A number of meetings ago, we had talked about Edinburgh Park and that front entrance project. We were in concept design at that point. I just wanted to let you know that at this point we are in kind of those stages of design development, so going out and securing bids. We are looking at construction in May, and that would occur over the summer. So hopefully a time when it's less busy at Edinburgh Park that we can get that accomplished. And I really wanted to stress, for those of you watching, those of you in the audience, I'm not sure how old you all are, but we have now posted all of our summer seasonal positions. We are recruiting for Art Center, summer camp art instructors, pottery instructors, Braemar Arena, who wants to drive a Zamboni, guest services, concessions. We're recruiting at the golf course, guest services, outside services, maintenance, Centennial Lakes, clubhouse attendants, horticulture aides, horticulture supervisors, Edina Aquatic Center, lifeguards, guest services. Again, at Edinburgh Park, we just mentioned guest services concession. We're also looking for playground program leaders, tennis instructors, directors, sports officials. We're looking for athletic field maintenance, general park maintenance, forestry assistants. All of those positions are posted online at edinamn.gov. Or, for those of you that are savvy, you can text JOBS, J-O-B-S, to 57838, and we will link you back with information. So again, edinamn.gov, you can just search jobs or text jobs to 57838. So we do hire a high number of people in the summer and throughout the year, and we're always looking for good people to also have fun within our system and go from there. So hopefully you can help us spread the word or help us spread the word through the schools, etc. We will be at Edina High School on February 19th for their opportunity fair as well. So.
Already a city employee.
Already a city
Bring
employee.
more.
Bring 3 friends.
I will.
All right, last but not least, the city council updates from the 22nd of January and February 4th.
Thank you. January 22nd, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the city council did review in work session, and then at their regular meeting, they adopted a resolution supporting the local option sales tax to the state legislature. So session started today, and we'll keep you apprised as we hear more. And then he is not here this evening, but when you see Tom Swenson, congratulate him on being the assistant weed inspector for the city of Edina. Kind of an odd statutory requirement. The mayor is actually the weed inspector for every city. There's a process that task is delegated down and falls on responsibility of typically park maintenance or horticulture. So those were the 2 action items that we had since your last meeting. So. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to Tracy Peterson. Tracy joins us day number 2 as the Assistant Director of Recreation and Facilities. We're extremely happy to have her here, and her experience and knowledge in the field. She'll oversee programming and the enterprise funds, and maybe Tracy would want to introduce herself.
Good evening, Chair and Commission. Thanks for inviting me. It is day number 2. Just a little bit of background on me. I most recently came from the city of Shoreview. I served as the Parks and Recreation Director for the city of Shoreview. And I'm looking forward to working with the citizens and the commission and the staff on continuing the great things that are happening here in Edina. And look forward to meeting all of you and working with you. And again, my background, I have a programming background, a facility background, worked with park maintenance and a lot of volunteer groups and citizen groups. So looking forward to getting started and then finishing out the week and then the years to come. So look forward to it.
Well, welcome. On that note, I asked for a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
I have a second, so all in favor?
He moved, I seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.